If you're in the world of finance or tech, you've definitely heard of Vista Equity Partners. They're a giant in private equity, completely focused on software. But here's the thing, trying to get a job there? It's a whole different level of challenge. So today, we're going to crack the code on their legendary and notoriously difficult hiring process. So, how do people who've actually been through it describe it? Well, these three words pop up over and over again. It's a gauntlet, plain and simple. And it's designed from the ground up to find a very, very specific type of person. And it really doesn't pull any punches. All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we're going to get a handle on the challenge itself, what we're calling the hiring gauntlet. Then we'll break down each major hurdle, the infamous cognitive tests, the personality assessment, and those intense interview rounds. And don't worry, we'll wrap it all up with a real, actionable prep plan to get you ready. Let's kick things off with the big picture. Why on earth is this process so intense? To really get the hiring gauntlet, you have to first understand what Vista is all about and the kind of talent they absolutely need to win. Look, Vista is a leader in software investing, so they need people with razor-sharp analytical skills. That's a given. But it's not just about being smart. It's about fitting into their very specific culture. Now, it's super important to remember that everything we're about to talk about isn't from some official company handbook. Nope. This is all intel we've pieced together from dozens and dozens of candidate accounts on sites like Glassdoor, Reddit, and Wall Street Oasis. So let's dive into the first and maybe the most famous or infamous gatekeeper in the whole process, the Criteria Cognitive Aptitude Test. You'll hear it called the CCAT. So what is this thing? Well, the CCAT is basically a test to see how quickly you can solve problems and think on your feet. It's going to hit you with a mix of math, vocabulary, and pattern recognition questions. It's a total sprint, not a marathon. And honestly, this is where a lot of candidates get screened out right from the get-go. The test throws 50 questions at you. And yeah, that sounds like a lot because it is. But believe it or not, the number of questions isn't the real killer. It's this. You only get 15 minutes for all 50 questions. That's just 18 seconds per question. The pressure is just immense. There's literally no time to waste. You hesitate, you're done. And you don't have to take my word for it. A candidate over on Reddit put it perfectly. You don't just need to be fast, you have to be lightning fast. This is all about speed and accuracy under some serious, serious pressure. So what's the magic number? What does it actually take to pass? Well, from what we can gather from all the reports, the target cutoff score is somewhere in that 31 to 35 range. I mean, think about that. Getting over 30 questions right in 15 minutes is an incredibly high bar to clear. And to put that into perspective, a score like that puts you in roughly the top 15% of everyone who takes this test. Vista is not looking for average here. They are filtering for the absolute best, right from the very beginning. And just when you think you've got the target dialed in, it gets even tougher. Check out this account from a candidate on Wall Street Oasis. They hit that minimum of 31, and it still wasn't enough. The standards are brutal, and some people are saying they might even be getting higher. Okay, so let's just say you do it. You defy the odds, you beat the clock, you hit the score, and you pass the CCAT. You can finally breathe a sigh of relief, right? Well, not so fast. This is a huge curveball for a lot of people. Vista will often make you take a second proctored version of the test to make sure your score is legit. That means taking it all over again, but this time with your webcam on and your browser locked down to prevent any cheating. You have to prove you can do it under their watchful eye. It's all about authenticity. Okay, so once you've proven your brain works at light speed under pressure, Vista wants to understand your personality. And that brings us to the next hurdle, the Employee Personality Profile, or EPP. Now, the EPP isn't really a test with right or wrong answers. It's more of a diagnostic tool. They use it to see if your work style and your personality are going to mesh with the culture at Vista. They're looking for people who are going to thrive in that demanding, data-obsessed, and super collaborative environment. So it really helps to know what they value. Traits like reliability, persistence, teamwork, and adaptability, these are the ones that are consistently flagged as being really important. So while you should definitely be honest, it's smart to think about how your past experiences show these qualities in action. They want to see a real pattern of behavior. All right, you've crushed the tests. Now, it's time to actually talk to people. Welcome to the interview gauntlet.
And no, this isn't just one or two quick chats. It's a whole series of deep, structured interviews designed to go way, way beneath the surface of your resume.
Vista has been pretty open about using something called the Who interview method. Now, this is not your typical tell me about a time when kind of interview. This is a systematic, sometimes multi-hour deep dive into every single job you've ever had, why you made the moves you did, and what you learned from it all. So here's how it works. They're going to walk through your entire resume, literally job by job. They'll dig into your biggest wins to understand exactly what you did. And maybe most importantly, they're going to ask you about your failures to see if you're self-aware and if you actually learn from your mistakes. Now, here's a super important point that trips people up. The process isn't exactly the same for every single role. If you're applying for a job at Vista's headquarters, you better be ready for some deep financial modeling and investment case studies. But if you're applying to one of their portfolio companies, the focus is probably going to shift to more role-specific skills, like a coding challenge for an engineer or a business simulation for a manager. We have covered a lot of ground here. The tests, the interviews. I know, it's a ton. It sounds intimidating. But the good news is, you can actually prepare for every single step of this. So let's talk strategy. All right, here's the game plan. For the CCAT, timed practice is everything. You have to get used to that clock. For the personality profile, really think about those key traits we talked about. For the Who interview, you need to map out your entire career history and practice telling that story clearly. And finally, you got to be ready to crush a case study that's specific to your role, whether that's building a financial model or working through a business problem. Look, there's just no way to sugarcoat this. Vista's hiring process is one of the toughest out there. It's designed to test your brains, your personality, and your grit. It's built to find the absolute best of the best. So the only question left is, are you ready to prove you're one of them?